In the middle of the sea, there is an island no one dares to visit. Poveglia, where thousands were burned alive, and their screams. Not calm, no. Calm would have been comforting. This silence felt wrong, like something beneath the surface was waiting, watching. Rafik tightened his grip on the edge of the small wooden boat as it rocked gently against the dark water. "Are you sure about this?" Karim whispered, his voice barely louder than the waves brushing against the hull. Rafik didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the shadow ahead. Poveglia Island. Even in the dim moonlight, it looked dead. No lights, no movement, no signs of life. Just broken buildings, jagged trees, and a black silhouette rising from the water like a wound in the world. "They say no one is allowed to go there," Karim continued, his voice shaking slightly. "Fishermen avoid this area for a reason." Rafik finally spoke. "That's exactly why we're going." Karim swallowed hard. "You remember what old Matteo said, right? About the screams?" Rafik forced a small smile. "Stories, just stories to scare tourists." But deep down, he wasn't so sure. The legend years ago, Poveglia wasn't just an island, it was a place of death. When the plague spread across Italy, the infected were brought here, not to be treated, but to be burned, alive. Thousands of people, men, women, children, were thrown into pits, stacked like garbage and set on fire. Their screams, their desperation. People believed those sounds never left. They stayed, trapped in the island. Crossing the line. As the boat drifted closer, the air grew colder. Not normal cold. A heavy, suffocating chill that seemed to press against their skin. Karim rubbed his arms. "Why is it so cold?" Rafik didn't respond, because he felt it too, and something else. A strange pressure in his ears, like the world had gone silent around them. No birds, no wind, no distant sounds of life, only the water, and their breathing. Then, splash, Karim froze. "You heard that, right?" Rafik nodded slowly. It came from behind them. They both turned. Nothing, just dark water. Still, too still. "The first sign. Let's just drop the net and go," Karim said quickly. "We don't need to stay long." Rafik hesitated, then nodded. "Fine. Quick in, quick out." They lowered the fishing net into the water. The rope slipped through Rafik's hands, disappearing into the black depths below. Seconds passed, then minutes. The silence returned, but this time, it felt heavier, as if something had changed. The voice. Rafik. Karim's voice was barely a whisper. "Did you just call my name?" Rafik frowned. "No." Karim's face went pale. Then, "Who did?" Rafik's heartbeat slowed. "Karim, stop joking. I'm not joking." Before Rafik could respond, a voice echoed across the water. Soft, distant. "Rafik." Both of them froze. It wasn't loud, but it was clear, and it came from the island. The shadow Rafik turned slowly toward Poveglia. At first, he saw nothing, just ruins. Then, something moved near the shoreline, a shape standing still, too still. Karim grabbed Rafik's arm. "Tell me you see that." Rafik nodded. The figure stood on the edge of the water. But something was wrong, very wrong. It wasn't sinking, it wasn't moving. It was just standing there, on the water. "Panic, pull the net now," Rafik said sharply. Karim didn't hesitate. They both grabbed the rope and started pulling, but the net felt heavy. Too heavy. "Why is it so heavy?" Karim shouted. Rafik pulled harder. "It's stuck. No, wait. It's moving." The rope jerked suddenly. Both of them nearly lost their grip. Karim screamed, "Something's pulling back." The watching thing. Rafik looked up. the shadow on the water. It had moved. Closer now, much closer. And now, he could see its face, or something like a face. Pale, twisted, and smiling. The catch, pull, pull, Rafik yelled. With one final effort, they dragged the net out of the water. It slammed onto the boat floor with a wet, heavy sound. Karim collapsed backward, gasping. "We're leaving. Now." But Rafik didn't move. He was staring at the net, his face slowly draining of color. Karim followed his gaze, and then he screamed. Inside the net, there were no fish, no seaweed, no debris, only bones, human bones, skulls, ribs, hands, some still wrapped in torn, blackened fabric. And one of the skulls, its jaw slowly moved, as if trying to speak. The whisper, from inside the net. A faint, broken whisper emerged. "Stay." Karim started crying. "No, no, no, no." Rafik looked back toward the water. The shadow was gone. But the island was no longer silent. From deep within its ruins came the sound of screaming. At first, it was distant, like echoes carried by the sea. But now, it felt close, too close, as if the island itself had woken up and was breathing again. Rafik stood frozen, staring at the net. The bones inside were shifting, not randomly, not from the movement of the boat. They were reacting. A skull rolled slowly to one side, its hollow eye sockets turning toward him. The jaw twitched once, then again. Karim stumbled backward, his voice cracking. "Rafik, tell me this isn't real." Rafik didn't answer, because somewhere deep inside him, he knew this was real. The air changes. The temperature dropped suddenly. A sharp, unnatural cold wrapped around them, like invisible hands pressing against their skin. Their breath became visible. Karim rubbed his arms frantically. "It feels like winter. What's happening?" Rafik looked toward the island. The ruins were no longer still. Something was moving between the broken walls. Shadows. Dozens of them. Slow, watching. The watching crowd. At the shoreline, figures began to appear. One by one. Then many. Thin silhouettes, blackened and burned, standing shoulder to shoulder along the water's edge. Some were missing limbs. Some had twisted spines. Some looked like melted shapes of what used to be human. And yet, all of them were facing the boat, watching, silently. The net awakens behind them. A sudden crack echoed. Karim screamed and spun around. The net jerked violently. Rafik turned just in time to see a skeletal arm force its way out from the tangled mass of bones. The fingers stretched, scraping against the wooden floor of the boat. Another arm followed, then another. The bones weren't just moving anymore, they were assembling. Rebuilding the dead ribs snapped into place. Spines twisted and locked. Skulls rolled and attached to necks that didn't exist moments ago. Karim fell to his knees. No. No, no, no. This can't be happening. The sound of bones grinding together filled the air. Dry, sharp, unnatural. Like something trying to remember how to be alive. Rafik backed away slowly, his heart pounding so loud he could hear it in his ears. This is wrong, the smell of fire. Then came the smell. It hit them both at once. Burnt flesh. Rotting. Ancient. Karim gagged, covering his mouth. Oh God. Oh God. Rafik felt his stomach twist violently. It wasn't just a smell. It was a memory. Not his own, but something forced into his mind. He saw flames, huge, roaring flames. Bodies thrown into pits, people screaming, clawing at each other, trying to escape, and failing. Voices of the burned, then. The whispers began. Soft at first, barely audible. Help us. Don't leave. It hurts. Karim shook his head wildly. Make it stop. Make it stop. Rafik pressed his hands against his ears. But it didn't help. The voices weren't outside. They were inside. The engine refuses. Start the boat, Karim shouted desperately. Rafik snapped out of it and rushed to the engine. He grabbed the cord and pulled. Nothing. Again. Nothing. Come on, he yelled. Behind them, the bones continued to rise, now forming full shapes, not complete, not perfect, but enough to stand. The first step. One of them moved. A half-formed skeleton dragged itself upright, its head tilted unnaturally. Then, it took a step. The sound of bone hitting wood echoed across the boat. Karim screamed, "It's walking! It's walking!" Rafik pulled the engine again. Still nothing. Something. Beneath the water suddenly churned. Not waves, not wind. Something underneath. Something massive. The boat shook violently. Karim grabbed the side. "What's under us?" Rafik looked down and froze. Shapes. Dozens. No. Hundreds. Faces. Just beneath the surface. All staring up. The drowned dead. Their eyes were open. Wide, unblinking. Their skin pale and stretched. Some burned, some broken, some missing parts. But all of them. Watching. Waiting. And slowly. Rising. Trapped. The boat stopped moving. Completely. Rafik pushed the throttle. Nothing. "It's stuck," he whispered. Karim looked over the edge again and screamed. Hands. Dozens of hands had emerged from the water, gripping the sides of the boat, holding it in place. Pulled by the past. "They won't let us go," Karim whispered, his voice shaking uncontrollably. Rafik's mind raced. Think. There has to be a reason. There has to be a way. Then he looked at the net. The bones. "We took them," he said slowly. Karim blinked. "What?" "We took something from them. The price." The whispers grew louder, angrier. "You belong here. You came. You stay." Rafik grabbed the net. The bones inside snapped toward him violently. A skull turned, and its empty eyes locked onto his. The warning. "Don't touch it," Karim shouted. But Rafik didn't stop. "They don't want us," he said. "They want this back." The boat shook harder, water splashing inside. The hands tightened. The return. With all his strength, Rafik lifted the net. The bones inside screamed, not with voices, but with a sound that didn't belong in this world. Karim covered his ears. "Do it," Rafik shouted. "Take it back," and threw the net into the sea. Silence. The moment it hit the water, everything stopped. The hands disappeared. The faces sank. The boat steadied. The whispers. Gone. Aftermath. For a long moment, nothing. No sound, no movement, just silence. Heavy. Unnatural. Karim collapsed onto the floor, breathing hard. "Is it over?" Rafik didn't answer. He didn't trust the silence. Escape. The engine suddenly roared to life. Rafik quickly grabbed control and pushed forward. This time, the boat moved. Slowly at first, then faster. They were leaving. The last look, Karim turned back toward the island. "I never want to see this place again." Rafik followed his gaze. The shoreline was empty. The figures were gone. The ruins were still, like nothing had ever happened. But something did. Rafik looked down at the water. Something moved beside the boat, keeping pace. He leaned slightly and saw it, a face, just beneath the surface. Not one of them. It wasn't burned. It wasn't broken. It looked normal. Too normal. It looked like Karim. The realization. Rafik slowly turned toward Karim. Karim was still sitting there, breathing, shaking, alive. Rafik looked back at the water. The face was still there, smiling. The smile. It rose slightly higher. Its eyes locked onto Rafik, then its mouth opened. Wider. Wider than humanly possible, and in a voice that sounded like Karim, it whispered, "Only one of you leaves." End scene. The boat sped into the darkness, far away from Poveglia, but beneath the water. Something followed. Something patient. Something that had chosen. The water didn't just follow them. It watched. Rafik couldn't look away. That face beneath the surface. Perfect. Calm. Smiling. Too perfect. Too calm. Too wrong. The silence between them. Neither of them spoke. The engine hummed steadily as the boat cut through the dark water, leaving Poveglia far behind. Karim sat across from Rafik, hunched over, breathing heavily. Alive. Normal. But Rafik's mind wouldn't settle, because just seconds ago, he had seen Karim's face beneath the water, smiling. "Doubt, Karim," Rafik finally said. Karim looked up slowly. "Yeah." His voice sounded normal. Too normal. Rafik hesitated. You didn't see anything in the water, right?" Karim frowned. "What do you mean?" Rafik forced a weak smile. "Nothing. I thought I saw something." Karim shook his head. "You're just shaken. We both are." Maybe he was right. Maybe it was fear. Maybe his mind was breaking. But something was off. Rafik looked down again. The water was calm now. Nothing there. No face, no movement. Just darkness. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling. Something came with them. The light ahead. Far in the distance, small lights appeared. The mainland. Safety. Karim let out a breath of relief. "We made it." But Rafik didn't feel safe. Not yet. The quiet change minutes passed. The boat moved closer to shore. The lights grew brighter. Normal life. Normal world. Everything should have felt okay. But then, Karim laughed. The wrong laugh. It wasn't loud, not sudden, but it was wrong. Too slow, too stretched. Like someone trying to copy what laughter should sound like. Rafik's stomach tightened. "What's funny?" he asked carefully. Karim didn't answer immediately. He just kept looking at the water, still smiling, watching himself. "I was just thinking," Karim said softly. "What?" Karim tilted his head slightly. "How easy it would be to take someone's place." Rafik froze. "What do you mean?" Karim finally looked at him, and for a split second, his eyes weren't normal. They were darker, empty. The glitch then, it was gone. Karim blinked. "What?" Rafik shook his head quickly. "Nothing. Forget it." But his heart was racing now. That wasn't normal. That wasn't Karim. The reflection. Rafik looked down at the water again and saw something that made his blood run cold. Two reflections. The boat, himself, and Karim. But Karim's reflection wasn't matching him. Not the same real Karim sat still, breathing, looking forward, but in the water. His reflection was smiling. Wide, unnaturally wide, and its head was tilted at an impossible angle. The truth-rising Rafik slowly leaned back, his mind racing. There are two of them, one here, one below, and one of them is not real. The question, Karim, Rafik said quietly. "Yeah? If something followed us," Karim didn't react. "If something came back from that island," still nothing. Then slowly, Karim turned his head and smiled. "The answer. What makes you think it followed us?" Karim asked. Rafik's throat went dry. Because that voice, it wasn't quite right. It sounded like Karim, but layered, like something else was speaking underneath. Too late. The boat slowed slightly as they neared the shore, and people were visible now. Fishermen, lights, voices, safety. But Rafik realized something terrifying. If that thing reached land, it wouldn't stop. The choice returns. Only one of you leaves. The whisper echoed in his head again. Now he understood. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Testing reality. Rafik grabbed a small knife from the boat. Karim noticed. "What are you doing?" Rafik didn't answer. He stepped closer. Slowly, carefully. "The fear. If you're really Karim," Rafik said quietly, "then prove it." Karim's smile faded slightly. "What kind of joke is this?" Rafik raised the knife. "Tell me something only you would know." Karim stared at him. For a moment. Silence. Then, Karim spoke. Almost right. "Your father died when you were 12, Karim said. Rafik froze. That was true. Your mother still lives in Bogra. Also true. You hate deep water. True. Too true. Rafik's grip tightened. "How do you know all that?" Karim smiled again. "The reveal. Because," Karim said softly, "I remember being you." Not Karim. The world seemed to stop. Rafik stepped back. "No." Karim stood up slowly. His movements, slightly delayed, like something learning how to move. The eyes. His eyes turned darker again, not fully black, but hollow, dead. "You looked at me," the thing said, "from the boat." And I looked back. The switch Rafik shook his head violently. "No, no, Karim is here." The thing tilted its head. "Is he?" The water answers. Rafik looked down and saw another face rising from the water. This time, it wasn't smiling. It was screaming, reaching, desperate. That was Karim. Too late to save, hands shot up from the water, grabbing, pulling. The real Karim was still down there, still trapped. The replacement, Rafik, looked back at the one on the boat. The thing smiled wider. I came back instead. The final seconds. The shore was right there. People waving, calling. They had no idea what was coming. Decision, Rafik's mind screamed. If this thing reaches land, more will come, more replacements, more horrors. The fight with a sudden movement, Rafik lunged forward, knife aimed straight at the thing's chest. But it was faster. Too fast. It caught his wrist midair. Inhuman strength. Its grip tightened, bones cracking. Rafik screamed. The thing leaned closer. Smiling. The whisper. "You should have stayed," it whispered. "Like the others." End scene. The boat drifted toward the shore. Lights getting closer. People waiting, unaware. And on the boat. Only one of them would step onto land. The shore was only meters away. Voices carried across the water. Normal voices. Fishermen laughing. Someone calling out. The distant hum of life continuing as if nothing had happened. But on the boat, something very wrong was about to step into that normal world. The grip Rafik screamed as the thing tightened its grip around his wrist. He felt his bones strain, almost snap. The knife trembled in his hand. The thing, wearing Karim's face, tilted its head slowly, studying him. Curious, amused. "You're still trying," it said softly. Its voice wasn't just Karim anymore. Now it sounded layered, like multiple voices speaking at once. Not human. Rafik looked into its eyes. There was nothing there. No fear, no confusion, no humanity, just emptiness, and something ancient behind it. Time running out. "Hey, you guys okay?" someone shouted from the shore. A fisherman waved at them. Rafik's heart dropped. If they came closer, if they helped, it would spread. The realization. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about stopping it. Right here, right now. One chance. Rafik forced himself to calm down. Pain shot through his arm, but he ignored it. Think. Think. The water, the bones, the island. It all connected. The weakness. "You couldn't leave," Rafik whispered. The thing paused. For the first time, it reacted. Its smile faded slightly. "You were trapped there," Rafik continued, "and you needed someone to take your place." The truth. The thing leaned closer. "So observant," it whispered. Its grip tightened again. "But you're still too late." The pull suddenly. The boat jerked, hard. Both of them nearly lost balance. The water beside them exploded into movement. The return of the dead hands burst from the surface again. Dozens. No. Hundreds. Grabbing, clawing, reaching. But this time, they weren't pulling the boat down. They were reaching for the thing. Not welcome. The creature's expression changed instantly. From calm to anger. "No," it hissed, its voice distorted violently. "They don't get to take me back." The war begins. The hands grabbed its legs, its arms, pulling, dragging, trying to take it back into the water. Rafik fell back, gasping, clutching his injured wrist. Two worlds collide. The creature screamed, a sound unlike anything human, half something broken. "I escaped," it roared. The dead don't let go. From the water, faces emerged. Burned, twisted, desperate, their voices echoed together. "You belong here." The choice returns. The boat rocked violently, water flooding in. Rafik realized this was it. They weren't just fighting the creature. They were deciding where it belongs. The moment, the creature turned toward him again, even as the hands pulled at it. Its face flickered. Karim. Then something else. Then Karim again. "Help me," it said suddenly, in Karim's voice. Perfect. Broken. Real. The trick. Rafik froze. That voice. That sounded exactly like Karim. "Rafik, please." The hands pulled harder. The creature screamed again. "I don't want to go back." Doubt what if? What if that was Karim? What if the real Karim had come back? And this thing was something else. The eyes again. Rafik looked into its eyes one more time and saw it. Not fear, not pain, just hunger. Decision made. "No," Rafik whispered. "You're not him." The final push. With his last strength, Rafik lunged forward again, this time not to stab, but to push, hard, back to the depths. The creature lost its balance. The hands seized the opportunity. They dragged it over the edge, into the black water. The scream echoed across the sea. Loud, inhuman, fading as it was pulled deeper, and gone. Silence again. The water calmed instantly. The hands disappeared. The faces vanished, like nothing had ever been there. Aftermath. The boat drifted quietly, half filled with water. Rafik lay there, breathing heavily. Alive. The shore. "Hey, are you okay?" Voices shouted again, this time closer. Real. Human. One last fear. Rafik slowly sat up, his heart still racing. He looked at the water one last time. Nothing. Just darkness. Still, but something changed as the boat touched the shore. Hands reached out to help him. Real hands. Warm. Alive. Ending scene. But deep below the surface, far beneath where light could reach, something opened its eyes. Again, the boat struck the shore with a dull wooden thud. For one long second, Rafik didn't move. He sat in the half-flooded boat, drenched in black water, chest heaving, one hand wrapped around his injured wrist, staring at the dark surface beside him as if it might split open again. But the sea was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that never feels like peace. Only aftermath. Hey, are you all right?" A fisherman jumped down from the stone edge of the dock and grabbed the side of the boat. Two others followed, their lanterns swinging, throwing weak yellow light across the water and over Rafik's face. Rafik flinched. Warm hands reached for him. Real hands, human hands. He wanted to believe that. He really did. "We saw your boat drifting," one of the men said. "What happened?" Rafik opened his mouth, but no words came. What was he supposed to say? That the dead had climbed out of the sea, that his friend had been taken and something else had worn his face, that an island full of plague victims had tried to drag them back into the dark? No. Even in his own head, it sounded impossible. The men helped him onto the dock. His legs almost gave out beneath him. The world tilted for a moment. Salt, cold, and the stench of old rot still clung to his clothes. One of the fishermen looked toward the boat. "Were you alone?" Rafik froze. The question cut through him harder than the cold. He looked back at the little wooden boat rocking gently against the dock. Empty. Of course it was empty. Karim was gone. No body, no trace. Just water pooled on the floorboards and scratch marks along the sides where those hands had gripped the wood. Rafik swallowed hard. "No," he said at last, voice cracked and weak. "I wasn't." The men exchanged uneasy looks. "Where is he?" Rafik stared at the boat a second longer. Then he whispered, "He didn't come back." None of them asked what that meant. Maybe it was the way he said it. Maybe it was his face. Maybe they already knew better than to ask too much about anything that came from the direction of Poveglia. The shore of the living. They took him to a small building near the harbor, a place fishermen used at night when storms came in. It smelled of damp rope, old wood, diesel, and cheap coffee. A weak bulb buzzed overhead. Someone wrapped a blanket around him. Someone else handed him a cup of something hot. His hands shook so badly he nearly spilled it. "You should go to a hospital," one of the older men said. Rafik nodded, but he wasn't listening. He could still hear the screams, not outside, inside. Soft now, farther away, but still there. Like echoes trapped somewhere behind his ears. He looked up suddenly. "How long," he asked, "have people avoided that island?" The oldest fisherman, gray beard, tired eyes, salt crusted into his jacket, was the one who answered, "Longer than my father's father lived." No one laughed. No one shrugged it off like superstition. The man set down his lantern and took a slow breath. "Some places," he said quietly, "become full. Too much pain, too much death, and the ground doesn't know how to carry it. The sea doesn't know how to wash it away." Rafik stared at him. "You know about it." The old man's eyes met his. "Everybody around here knows. We just don't speak of it after dark." Rafik leaned forward despite the pain. "My friend is still there." The man was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "No." Rafik's face tightened. "You don't understand. I understand more than you think," the fisherman said. "If the island wanted him, then he is not still there, the way you mean it." The room seemed colder again. Rafik gripped the cup harder. Something came back wearing his face. The younger fisherman shifted uneasily. One of them crossed himself, but the old man did not look surprised. He only looked tired. "It happens," he said. Rafik's heart stopped for a beat. "What?" The old man kept his voice low. "Not often, but enough. That island cannot leave by itself, so sometimes it borrows." A long silence followed. Rafik felt the blanket suddenly become unbearably heavy around his shoulders. "Borrows," he repeated. The old man nodded once. A face, a voice, a grief big enough to open the door. Rafik shut his eyes, Karim laughing on the boat. Karim's reflection smiling when his real face wasn't. The thing saying, "I came back instead." He should have felt relief. He had stopped it. He had pushed it back into the sea. But relief never came, because deep inside, one question remained. What if he had only pushed one of them back? The thing he couldn't explain. By dawn, the police had come. Then questions. Then more questions. What route did you take? Why were you out there? What happened to Karim? Did the boat overturn? Did he fall in? Were you drinking? Were you injured before or after docking? Rafik answered as little as he could. Storm. Panic. The boat drifted too close. Karim went overboard. I tried to save him. It was the kind of lie that looked enough like truth to survive. No one wanted the real answer. No one in that room could have carried it. By late morning, Karim's family had been told. That part hurt more than the night. His mother's crying, his brother's silence, the way everyone looked at Rafik, not accusing exactly, but searching his face for something he could never give them. A body, a reason, a clean ending. There was none, because somewhere between the island and the shore, ending had become impossible. Night does not end when the sun rises. For 3 days, Rafik did not sleep. He tried. He lay in bed, closed his eyes, counted breaths, listened to the city outside his window. But every time he drifted near sleep, he heard water moving beneath wood. He heard bones scraping against a boat floor. He heard Karim's voice, not screaming, whispering, Rafiking. On the 4th night, exhaustion finally dragged him under, and he dreamed. He was back on the boat, not in the middle of the sea this time, at the dock. The water was perfectly still. The sky was empty. No stars, no clouds, no moon, just black. He heard a knocking sound, soft, slow, below him. Knock, knock, knock. He looked down over the edge of the boat. At first, there was only his reflection. Then another face rose beneath it. Karim, pale, soaked, eyes wide with terror. His lips moved. Rafik leaned closer. What? Karim lifted one shaking hand and pressed it against the underside of the water. Like glass. Like he was trapped beneath a surface he could not break. His mouth moved again. This time, Rafik understood. It wasn't me. Then the face smiled. Too wide, the eyes darkened, and the thing beneath the water whispered. But you let me in. Rafik woke up screaming. The mark left behind. He stopped going near the harbor, stopped answering calls, stopped meeting anyone after dark. He told himself it was grief, shock, trauma. But that wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was worse. The whole truth was this. Since that night, mirrors had started behaving strangely. It began small. A blink that felt delayed, a smile that stayed a little too long, a reflection that seemed to tilt its head just a fraction before he did. He told himself he was imagining it, until the bathroom mirror proved he wasn't. Then he had gone to wash his face after another sleepless night. Cold water, trembling fingers. He looked up and saw himself staring back. Except the reflection wasn't tired, wasn't afraid. It looked calm, interested. Then very slowly it raised its injured wrist, the same wrist the creature had gripped on the boat. Rafik looked down at his real arm. The skin there had bruised dark in the shape of long, narrow fingers. But in the mirror, the bruises were blacker, deeper, as if the handprint were sinking through the flesh. Then the reflection smiled, a quiet, knowing smile, and Rafik stumbled backwards so hard he crashed into the sink. When he looked again, it was normal. Just him, breathing hard, alone. But he knew. Something had not stayed in the sea. Something had touched him, and it had not let go. In the last visit, he lasted 1 more week before returning to the harbor. He told no one. Not the police, not Karim's family, not the fishermen. Because this time he was not looking for proof. He was looking for an answer. The sea was gray that evening, the wind low, clouds hanging close enough to crush the horizon flat. The old fisherman was there, repairing a net. He didn't look surprised to see Rafik. "You came back," the man said. Rafik stepped closer. "I think part of it followed me." The old man kept working for a moment, then set the net down. "Tell me exactly what you've seen." So Rafik did. The dreams, the mirror, the handprint, the whispering voice when the room was empty, the sense, every night, that someone was standing just outside his bedroom door, waiting for permission to enter. When he finished, the old man looked out at the water for a long time. Then he said, "You looked at it, and it looked back. That matters." Rafik felt cold in a way the wind could not explain. "Can it take me?" The old man shook his head slowly. "Not like that." "Then what does it want?" "To be remembered," he said. "To be carried. To survive in the living world in pieces if it cannot come whole." Rafik's jaw tightened. "How do I stop it?" The old fisherman's face hardened with something close to pity. "You may not." Rafik stared at him. "There must be something." The man hesitated, then reached into his coat and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. Inside was a rusted metal, religious once, maybe, or meant for protection. Time had nearly erased its details. "My father gave this to me," he said, "and his father to him. It doesn't save everyone, but some things dislike being named and denied." Rafik took it carefully. "What do I do?" "If it speaks," the old man said, "do not answer in fear. If it appears in your face, remind it whose face it is. If it asks to be let in, refuse, out loud." Rafik closed his fingers around the metal. "And if that doesn't work?" The old man looked toward the faint dark line of Poveglia in the distance. "Then pray, it only wants you." The final door. That night it came, not in a dream, not in a mirror, at his door. 3 slow knocks. Rafik sat upright in bed, every muscle locked. Knock, knock, knock. The room was dark except for a slice of streetlight across the floor. He could hear nothing else. No footsteps in the hall, no neighbors, no city noise, just the door. Then came Karim's voice. Soft, weak. "Rafik." His blood turned to ice. "Please." Another knock. "It's cold." Rafik's hand shook as he reached for the metal. He wanted to cry, wanted to believe, wanted, for one terrible second, to open the door and see his friend alive somehow, soaked and broken and impossible, but real. Then the memory came back. The water, the smile, the words. I came back instead. Rafik held the metal so tightly the edges cut into his palm. "No," he whispered. Outside, the voice went still. Then, more urgently, "Rafik, it's me." His eyes filled. A long silence followed. Then something scratched lightly against the wood. Not fingers, nails, or bone. "Don't make me stay outside," the voice said, and now there were 2 voices under it. Then 3. Then many. Rafik forced air into his lungs, raised his head, and said louder, "This is not your face. This is not your voice. You are not welcome here." The scratching stopped. The silence that followed felt bottomless. Then the door handle turned, slowly. Once, twice, but the lock held. A wet, distorted breathing seeped through the gap beneath the door. Then a whisper. Not Karim's now, something older, something broken. "We remember you." The hallway light outside flickered beneath the door. And then, nothing. No sound, no presence, no breathing. just quiet. Rafik stayed awake until sunrise. When morning finally came, he opened the door. The hallway was empty, but on the wood, at eye level, 5 long black marks had been carved into the paint, and at the bottom of the door, a damp footprint, bare, as if someone had stood there for hours. The truth about leaving Rafik left the city a month later. Some said grief drove him away. Some said guilt. Some said madness. People always choose the explanation that lets them sleep. He never went near open water again, never looked too long into mirrors, never answered a knock after midnight. And yet, even years later, on certain nights when the air turned sharply cold and the world went too quiet, he would wake with the certainty that somewhere far away, beyond black water and plague ash and broken stone, a whole island full of dead mouths was speaking his name, not calling him back. Not yet, just reminding him that he had seen, that he had survived, that survival was not the same thing as escape. Because the truth about Poveglia Island was never that people died there. The truth was worse. Some part of them remained. In water, in memory, in borrowed faces, in the thin places between doors, between reflections, between sleep and waking, waiting, patient, hungry. And if you listen too carefully to the sea at night, if you drift too close to forbidden shorelines, if you answer when something calls you in a voice you love, then you learn the final truth too late. No one who reaches Poveglia ever truly leaves.